Thank you, Elise Anderson. And now we will hear from Jones York Brown, the Bienvenidos project.
I created the Bienvenidos project to challenge the long history of utopian longing projects like Manifest Destiny and the current politics of exclusion in Arizona with an alternative message of welcoming and inclusion. I combined my learning in psychology, art, and cultural studies to turn my personal grieving into a public art project. I turned to recent critical social theory to show how the state has a haunting presence, and how we can alternately haunt the state, as well as how subversive aesthetics such as the act of stickering can turn our longings into concrete visions for the future. I created the image in a class called Art and Activism over a fall block of 2010. I brainstormed, researched, sketched, and finally painted the image. In the fall of 2010, and again during the presidential election of 2012, I installed campaign signs throughout Arizona to present a symbol of opposition to laws like SB 1070 and HB 2281. This fall I applied critical social theory to the project with my mentor Zoe Hammer and wrote a scholarly essay to create a zine combined with photos that will be available for purchase on phoenixtaco.com, as well as stickers. I was also honored to be the teaching assistant for the freshman art and social change seminar taught by Julie Komnick. I appreciated the opportunity to share my work with the students and inspire the college's next generation of artists and activists. This is the Arizona state flag. It was designed in 1917 and almost was not used because the sun rays reminded some people of the Japanese flag. The copper star of the Arizona flag represents the history of mining in the state, and the red and yellow bars are to honor the Spanish conquistadors who roamed the region in the 1500s. As Arizona has just celebrated being 100 years old, stamping the Spanish word for welcome was meant to represent the history and resistance that has existed in Arizona long before statehood. Prescott, the original capital of Arizona, is actually named after William H. Prescott, who's best known for his book, The Conquest of Mexico. When the term Manifest Destiny was coined in 1845, the ideas quickly spread through art and advertisements, encouraging settlers to move out west. John Gass' oil painting, American Progress, is a great example of these ideas, as it shows America as the light leading the way for settler colonialists to bring civilization to the west. Running ahead of them in darkness are the wild animals, buffalo, and indigenous people who were here before them. Recent politics of exclusion in Arizona are best represented by state laws like 1070 and 2281. 1070, known as the Papers, Please law, mandates racial profiling, radically enhancing the powers of local police to enforce federal immigration law. Even before going into effect, the law created fear in already vulnerable immigrant communities throughout the state. HB 2281, as Liza York so eloquently put, is a law prohibiting public schools from offering courses that promoted the overthrow of the government or advocated for ethnic solidarity. The law was specifically designed to dismantle the Mexican American Studies program at Tucson Magnet High School, even though education scholars have called the program the nation's most innovative and successful academic program in ethnic studies at the secondary level. These laws are the concrete ways that projects of utopian longing like Manifest Destiny have changed life in Arizona. Critical geographer Ruth Wilson Gilmore called Arizona the front line of apartheid at a recent lecture at ASU. Just south of ASU, the city of Guadalupe, Arizona, is often the site of targeted raids on undocumented people by Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. I have bought 2 bicycles in Guadalupe, When I bought my first bike in 2008, there were 24 shops open at the Central Outdoor Mall, and there were people riding bikes, eating dinner, and kids playing. But when I turned to research the project in 2010, the once vibrant spaces of Guadalupe were abandoned. There were no people to be seen, and only 3 storefronts were still occupied. Gilmore's description of Arizona as the front line of apartheid is no exaggeration. I was horrified to be living in a state where the color of my skin and the documents in my wallet allowed me to travel through spaces that were no longer accessible to others. Attorney General Tom Horne and Governor Jan Brewer both used the passage of 1070 as vehicles for re-election. Almost all of their campaign signs displayed that message proudly. Sociologist Avery Gordon says, "The haunting presence of subversive forces and alternative values striving to become social facts is very frightening because it is a testament to the reality of living better and otherwise than we're expected to, and that indeed can make the present waver, make it not quite what we thought it was." I wanted to make the present waver by challenging the viewer to imagine another Arizona that does not exist in the now. The state legislature has created laws and structures to haunt marginalized communities in Arizona, and I wanted to join the resistance to alternately haunt the state. 1070 sends different messages to different communities. To residents with race and citizenship privilege, it sends a message of protection from criminals. To everyone else it says, "You don't belong here, and if you do not leave, you will be forcibly removed." But messages do not always produce their desired results, and though thousands of vulnerable residents have left the state, many thousands more have stayed to resist and fight these laws. Utopian longing and futurity is more than just generative. The ideas of manifest destiny have created utopian structures in the mining, agriculture, and ranching industries. They have created infrastructure that alters the landscape, and by putting policies into practice, they have turned fantasy into reality. The opposition in Arizona must continue to imagine radically different futures to turn our longings into political projects. Projects that challenge the systemic and institutional conditions created by someone else's utopian longing. According to NYU performance studies professor and theorist Jose Munoz, illicit stickers are what he calls performing objects because they can engage the viewer in a way that solicits a response. His theory explains the role stickering can play in alternatively haunting the state. Some people attempt to rip the stickers down, some people write directly on the stickers, while others take a photograph and share it on social media. Munoz says that the stickers themselves become alternative spaces for public debate, a place to work, away from the corporate mediatized majoritarian public sphere, a sphere that, in Arizona, has become more militarized and more dominated by aggressive neoconservative rhetoric by the day. He goes on to say that stickers can engage the viewer's critical imagination to encourage lucidity and political action. The response is sometimes an outpouring of state ideology, and at other times the responses are glimpses of an actually existing queer future in the present. The stickers are doing the much-needed work of watching the watchers. The Bienvenidos image works in a similar way as it presents an alternative vision of the future in the present. Its subversive presence alternatively haunts the state by traveling as hundreds of campaign signs and thousands of stickers. It has traveled as protest signs throughout the state and in many news stories covering 1070 in Arizona. It has also appeared in local media and street art blogs like the Phoenix New Times and Phoenix Taco, as well as national media such as the Huffington Post and Comedy Central's Daily Show. In 2010, I had the honor of transforming the image to help fundraise for the Safe Ethnic Studies campaign. I worked with Anita Fernandez to say eduquémonos, meaning educate ourselves. I made the flyer and t-shirts. Since then, I have been inspired by Unidos, a group of young activists who were students and alumni of the Mexican American Studies program in Tucson. On April 26, 2011, they successfully stopped a school board vote that would have ended the Mexican American Studies program by chaining themselves to the board members' chairs and each other. They displayed a banner saying, "Bienvenidos presents the Youth School Board." They challenged the audience and school board to imagine a radically different future, where a youth-led movement will have shaped Tucson's public schools. Though the program is currently dismantled, amazingly, and thanks to the hard work of many, it was announced the program would be reinstated not only in Tucson Magnet High School, but in all secondary schools in the district by 2013-2014 school year. In the meantime, many students are still taking ethnic studies classes on Sundays through Curtis Acosta's Chicana Literature After School Studies, or class. An inspiring act of solidarity and subversion is Prescott College's decision to give college credit to the students enrolled in Acosta's weekend class. I feel honored to be part of such an institution. Racism, violence, and art have been instrumental in the construction of Manifest Destiny. The state uses the publicity and enforcement of these laws to haunt not only undocumented communities, but all people of color in Arizona. To get ourselves thinking outside of someone else's project of utopian longing, we have to create our own. We either choose to imagine and create a more welcoming Arizona, or we don't, and subsequently choose to live in someone else's fantasy. Presenting alternatives is necessary to radically imagine different futures and communities that are more welcoming. Much like how the fantasies of Manifest Destiny have been made concrete with walls, pipelines, dams, and cages, the opposition must continue to turn our imaginative projects into political ones that challenge the systemic and institutional conditions of our present with different futures. Thank you.